Hello, everybody. How are you today? My name is Marta Pardo, and as you know, I'm here to present our fantastic PSA talks. The PSA talks that are talking about our fabulous speakers that are coming to our next convention in the 18th of November in Barcelona. So today I'm thrilled to present a man that is called, I'm going to tell you a little bit after, is called Francisco. I'm going to let you see what is his last name. First of all, he is a lovely speaker. He loves to speak. Actually, he loves to speak even he has nothing to say. Imagine that. Yes, he became a national champion of public speaking. Today is a keynote speaker, and not just a keynote, he is also a storyteller. He's a coach. He actually delivers his coaching to all the organizations to inspire them, to tell them how to communicate effectively. He's international. He has a lot of clients, international clients. He's actually very funny. You will see. He's very handsome. And he is the author of a book that is called Bear, A Guide to Brutally Honest Public Speaking. This host is going to talk about a subject that interests all the speakers are behind this screen. Yes, the story power you're speaking. He's also a podcaster. So please welcome, with a very, very huge, warmful applause, Francisco Mahfuz.
Hello, Marta.
Oh, hello. How are you, Francisco?
Well, I'm concerned because you introduced me as a lovely speaker who's handsome and funny. The chances of me meeting those very high expectations is not for less than 100%, I would say.
Well, you are. So I'm sure the audience behind is gonna laugh, and that's what we wanted. Also, to be a storyteller is also to tease the audience to see what is behind that lovely guy. Well, I want you to tell us a little bit about you, your personality. Where are you from? Because you have an accent like me. Where is this accent from?
Well, I like to joke that I am like a crap Jason Bourne. I have all the passports, but none of the skills. So I tend to think of myself as Brazilian, but I have family from Italy. I was born in the United States. I live in Spain. So I think all of those things contribute to one degree or another to having a very strange accent. And I speak English almost every day, all day long, in a country that doesn't speak English. So that doesn't help the accent.
Well, never mind. You speak beautifully English. So, well, today we have the honor to have you here because you're going to be one of our top speakers in the convention, Make an Impact. And I love actually the title of this speech. This conference is called Story Power Your Speaking, right?
I'm not 100% sure that that's actually the title. I think we were between Story Power Your Speaking and Find Your Story Powers, which is the one I tended to prefer. Whatever has made the final cut will be a surprise to me as to everyone else. But the essence of it is the same. Yes, I haven't got a particularly long speech. I believe I've got 7 minutes, and in those 7 minutes, I need to convince people of why they should use stories to power not only their speeches, because I think that's almost too obvious these days. I mean, the person that is trying to be a professional speaker and doesn't know that they should tell stories, it has probably got a lot of work to do. But the idea here was how do you use a story to power your speaking business? So how do you become a more interesting speaker when you're not necessarily on stage speaking, by using storytelling? So how can storytelling help you in that sense, on stage as well, of course, but also how do you make you a more interesting speaker to the people who are going to hire you, who are going to watch you, even before you get on stage?
Well, actually, it's perfect because I'm going to ask you a question about that. Even if you are not going to tell everything, of course, it's just a teaser. What are some practical techniques or strategies that you can recommend to improve these storytelling skills? Because we need to captivate the audience, as you say, and it's not easy. You said just that you're going to have a speech of 7 minutes. So in 7 minutes, you need to be concrete. You need to be really punchy. You need to go to the essence of what you want to give to the audience. So what are your 2 or 3 techniques that you can say?
The first technique to improve anyone's storytelling should be too obvious to mention, but it's not, which is you should actually tell stories. Because there's 2 problems here. A lot of people either don't tell stories, they are just talking, they're sharing opinions, they're sharing whatever they think are facts. They're making pronouncements about the world, but that's not how our brain pays attention, how we get engaged, how we remember things, how we care about things. So, actually tell stories. And some people think they're telling stories, but they're not. They're talking about things that happen. And a traditional one is someone who say, I was born in the United States and I grew up in Brazil and now I live in Barcelona. That's not a story. Those are just 3 statements about my life. Okay. So the very first thing is actually tell a story. And the second one is understanding what a story is. A story is a real, at least the way I describe it is, a story is a real life example that makes a point. So if you have less time, it's even more important that you make your point very clearly and in a way that is memorable to the audience. And the best way I know of to make a point clear and memorable is to find one story that perfectly illustrates what you're trying to say. Because what happens all the time in our communication is you explain something and the person that you're talking to says, I'm not sure I get it completely. Can you give me an example?
Yeah,
so,
just
lead with the example, which often is a story, and that makes it clearer, particularly if you don't have a great deal of time. And the third point that would improve most people's storytelling immediately is one that particularly people that have come from sort of like a Toastmasters type background need to be very aware of, which is you should tell a speech the way you talk to people over dinner. So if you imagine you're sitting next to the person having dinner, or you're at a bar having a drink, how would you tell that story? Because I'm 100% sure that unless you are, our mutual friend Florian Mook, you probably wouldn't tell a story with like massive hand gestures and moving all around and doing voices and saying stuff like, and the wind was rustling through the trees outside my window. And I wondered, could that maybe be... Like, nobody talks that way, right? You would say, I was in my bedroom and I heard the wind outside and I thought, is that someone, like, is that a window? Is that someone outside my window? Right? You just talk normally, right? So you're at a bar, you're not at Broadway. So just by doing those very basic things, you would be telling a story for the right reason, which is to use it as an example. And third, telling a story in a way that sounds natural and not in a way that sounds sort of theatrical. And actually, not even in the theater, anybody wants to listen to a story like that. So those are fairly basic, but the vast majority of people fail at one of those almost without they fail almost without fail every time they do a speech or try to communicate anything.
But you're completely right. It's so hard to do that. I think we are professional speakers, and and we are Latin, so we always talk with our hands, and we are very all the time very happy and everything. So it's true what you're saying. Is what? How can you concentrate yourself to be natural at the same time telling something that is going to captivate the audience? And at the same time to engage the audience, because you as a storyteller, you need to engage the audience to listen to you and to follow you, and to that's hard. So
Sure.
In the
Sure.
world of speaking, in the public speaking, how can you think you will help speakers to connect with the audience, if that's my other question?
Okay, so I think the first question about being natural and engaging the audience, I think there's a misconception that a lot of speakers have, which is that they think that good speaking depends a lot on delivery and perhaps not as much on content. So and I think the absolute proof that that's not the case is our TED Talks. Because if you look at it, the vast majority of TED speakers are not great speakers. In fact, a lot of TED Talks are filmed and done more than once, so the final video comes out better. But those speakers often have notes with them. They don't move particularly well on stage, whatever you think moving well on stage is. They don't use their hands in a way that a lot of people think they should be doing. But what they do very well is their content is very good. So the way I look at it is, if your content is very good, and you're familiar with it, you're confident in the content. I barely talk to most people that I coach on things like hand gestures and vocal variety and whatever. Like, are you doing something with your physical delivery that is gonna put people off or distract them? If you're not, that is the last thing you need to worry about. Okay, because hands, like I'm, Brazilian, Latin, Italian, my hands do what hands do. They move. What my hands shouldn't be doing is making, like, miming. Like, I call them on the phone and I pointed to them. Like, I'm saying the words. You don't need my hands to illustrate them. So I think that people need to get this out of their heads, that their body and their delivery is super important to add to a speech. You don't add to a speech with your physical delivery. You avoid, if you do it well, you don't subtract it from your content. So it's make sure it's not getting in the way instead of trying to add to it. How do you and the natural thing is, I think if you know what you're trying to say from back to front, like you're not trying to remember what it is, you really believe in that content, then it's much easier to be natural on stage than if you're trying to remember, if you don't really believe what you're saying. And that sometimes takes a lot of rehearsal. It takes a lot of rehearsal to come across natural. And some people don't get that. They think that natural is improvising, and it's not. Otherwise, no actors would ever rehearse, and that is nonsense. Your other question was, how do you connect to an audience? I think that the most important thing to connect to any audience is relatability. They need to feel that whatever you're talking about is relevant to them, that you are a person like them, or that you're talking to things that could be true for them. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to tell honest, vulnerable stories, and stories about things that people relate to, because everybody is afraid of something. Everybody has some amount of imposter syndrome. A lot of people have children. A lot of people want children. A lot of people are in relationships. A lot of people have a job that is perhaps not perfect. So there's a lot of different things that are very, very relatable. And if you talk about them and tell stories about them from a place of honesty and vulnerability, not trying to always make yourself look good, people listen to you and go, this guy is just like me, or this person is just like me. I have those problems. I have those fears. So now you created that connection. And that is, I think, by far the most important thing, because you can do everything else perfectly. You can be funny, you can have amazing eye contact, you can deliver your speeches in a way that a lot of people would consider very skilled. But if you're not if it's not relatable, then
Yeah,
there's just no
it's not
connection
working.
there. 100%.
Well, time is gone too fast. I want to thank you. I want to tell you great, because you are so natural and so humble that we are just really thrilled to see you on stage. Don't forget to be the 18th of November in Barcelona to look at this guy, Francisco Mahfuz, and with the story power you're speaking. So see you there. Bye-bye, everybody. And thank you so much. Ciao, ciao.